Picture this for a second. It's a quiet morning in retirement. You're finally living in the season of life you spent decades working toward. For years and years, you woke up early, showed up consistently, sacrificed your time, postponed pleasures, and carried responsibilities that most people around you never truly noticed. You built your savings carefully, one decision at a time, and now, at last, you're standing in a chapter where the pressure has eased and financial independence finally feels real. That feeling is powerful, but hidden underneath that freedom, there's often another emotion that slowly begins to surface. It usually starts as a whisper in the back of your mind. You tell yourself, I worked for this. I finally deserve to enjoy it. And honestly, you are absolutely right. You did earn it. Those emotions are real, understandable, and completely human. But here's the difficult part that very few people warn retirees about at exactly the moment those feelings become strongest. Some of the purchases that feel the most rewarding emotionally in retirement are the exact same purchases that quietly become the biggest financial weights later in life. And this is important to understand. It usually does not happen because someone was irresponsible or careless. It happens because the real long-term costs behind certain major purchases are almost never fully explained when people are making emotional decisions. By the time the hidden expenses finally become obvious, the money has already disappeared, and the commitment is difficult to escape. So in today's explainer, we're going to break down 5 very specific purchases that retirees across the country often make with tremendous excitement and later regret with surprising consistency. Here's exactly where we're heading today. First, we'll discuss the emotional permission gap. Second, we'll cover the hidden math of retirement spending. Third, we'll walk through the 5 purchases retirees regret most often. Fourth, we'll discuss the financial rescue trap involving adult children. And finally, we'll finish with practical frameworks that protect long-term freedom. Let's get started. Section 1, Understanding the Permission Gap and Why Intelligent Retirees Sometimes Make Costly Decisions. Psychologists actually use a term for this stage of retirement. They call it the permission gap. Usually, it appears during the first few years after leaving full-time work. Suddenly, for the first time in decades, you feel emotionally permitted to spend money on dreams you postponed for years. Maybe it's the RV. Maybe it's the luxury boat. Maybe it's a vacation property near the lake or the beach. Think about the life structure you operated under for 40 years. Your financial choices were constantly controlled by obligations. Mortgage payments, raising children, college tuition, healthcare costs, work demands, commuting expenses. Every purchase was filtered through responsibility. But then retirement arrives and something shifts psychologically. The dominant force behind your spending decisions stops being obligation and starts becoming desire. The challenge is that purchases driven by desire at age 65 operate under completely different financial rules than they did at age 45. At 45, mistakes can often be repaired with future income and working years. At 65, when you're relying on fixed income and accumulated savings, the margin for recovery becomes extremely limited. In many cases, it barely exists at all. Research from the Employee Benefit Research Institute found something genuinely alarming. Retirees who make major discretionary purchases during the first 3 years of retirement are 31% more likely to experience financial shortfalls before age 80. Just think about that carefully. 31%. That number is not random. It reflects the very real financial consequences of the permission gap operating without boundaries, often fueled by shifting identity, emotional excitement, or simply boredom during early retirement. Now let's move into Section 2, the hidden math of retirement and the true price of ownership. Most people evaluate large purchases based almost entirely on the sticker price. They walk onto a dealership lot or tour an open house and think mainly about the purchase amount itself. But financial planners who specialize in retirement stability think very differently. They focus on two things together: total ownership cost and opportunity cost. Imagine an iceberg floating in the ocean. The visible sticker price is only the small portion above the surface. The larger financial burden exists underneath, where most people never look. Before buying any major item in retirement, there are three numbers you absolutely must calculate honestly. First, determine the actual yearly ownership cost. That includes insurance, maintenance, taxes, repairs, storage expenses, and depreciation, which quietly destroys wealth year after year. Second, estimate realistic annual usage. Not fantasy usage based on your dream scenario, but honest usage measured in actual days throughout the year. Third, calculate opportunity cost. Ask yourself what that same money could earn if it remained conservatively invested instead of tied up in a depreciating asset. Once these three numbers are combined, the results are often sobering. Vanguard research demonstrates that a $25,000 purchase at age 62 may carry an additional hidden opportunity cost of roughly $30,000 in missed compound growth by age 75, even assuming conservative returns around 6%. In reality, that purchase did not simply cost $25,000. It potentially removed more than $55,000 from your future retirement resources. And retirement living on fixed income magnifies every financial mistake dramatically. When you are still employed, an unexpected $3,000 repair bill is frustrating but manageable. During retirement, withdrawing an additional $3,000 can create tax consequences, permanently reduce investment growth, and even increase the taxable portion of your Social Security benefits. Small mistakes begin triggering larger financial consequences in multiple directions at once. There is very little room for error anymore. All right, Section 3. The 5 purchases retirees regret most often. Purchase number 1 is the luxury RV or motorhome. Emotionally, the appeal is easy to understand. The open highway, national parks, family road trips, grandchildren making memories together. It sounds wonderful, but the reality often looks very different from the marketing. Statistics from Statista show that 56% of RV owners over age 60 use their vehicle less than 3 weeks annually, less than 21 days a year. Meanwhile, Consumer Reports estimates annual maintenance costs for a Class A motorhome commonly range between $3,000 and $7,000 every single year. That becomes an extremely expensive vehicle to leave parked most of the time. Let me share an example. A retired couple we'll call David and Carol entered retirement with approximately $340,000 saved. They purchased a beautiful 38-foot motorhome for $112,000, imagining years of cross-country travel. But over time, health challenges changed the situation. David developed chronic back pain that made long-distance driving exhausting. Their planned travel schedule gradually shrank from several long trips each year down to occasional short vacations. Eventually, they sold the vehicle. The numbers were brutal. Between loan costs, yearly storage fees, maintenance bills, insurance, and depreciation, the RV ultimately cost them nearly $14,000 annually, while being used only 42 days total across 5 years. That works out to roughly $2,470 for every single day of actual use. And emotionally, the stress became just as damaging as the financial loss. They felt pressure to force trips simply to justify owning the vehicle. This is what financial advisors call sunk cost acceleration. The healthier alternative is what planners refer to as the rent-first approach. Instead of buying a massive RV, rent one during the few weeks you actually travel each year. Over 5 years, renting may cost between $15,000 and $30,000 total, without maintenance headaches, storage concerns, or depreciation losses. The experience itself remains almost identical, while the financial burden becomes dramatically smaller. Purchase number 2 is the timeshare. Financial professionals, consumer protection agencies, and retirement experts almost universally agree on this one. Timeshares consistently rank among the worst long-term financial commitments retirees make. The average timeshare purchase in the United States costs roughly $24,000 upfront. But the larger issue is the sales process itself. Most people encounter timeshares during vacations, lured into presentations with promises of free meals or discounted activities. After hours of emotional sales pressure and artificial urgency, many people eventually agree. Consider a woman we'll call Margaret. She purchased a beautiful Florida timeshare for around $22,000. Several years later, family schedules changed and she could barely use her assigned week anymore. Yet the annual maintenance fees continued arriving every single year, climbing steadily higher. When she attempted to sell the property, she discovered the resale market was almost non-existent. Many timeshares sell online for $1 or fail to sell entirely. Desperate to escape the contract, she contacted a timeshare exit company and learned they wanted thousands more simply to attempt cancellation, without guaranteeing success. Once you factor in the purchase cost, rising maintenance fees, lack of resale value, and difficulty escaping the agreement, timeshares consistently create one of the worst financial outcomes on this entire list. Purchase number 3 is the vacation home or lake property. This dream is deeply emotional because it centers around family memories, holidays, and togetherness. But second homes often become financially exhausting much faster than expected. According to the National Association of Realtors, buyers consistently underestimate second home operating costs by roughly 34% during the first year alone. Owning a second property means property taxes, utilities, insurance, repairs, management costs, and maintenance year-round, even when the home sits empty. A $400,000 vacation property can easily cost $8,000 or more annually before anyone even spends a night there. Take Robert and Linda as an example. They bought a beautiful lake house in Michigan for $380,000. Initially, they loved it. But within a few years, relaxing weekends were replaced with endless repairs, dock maintenance, plumbing issues, and long-distance emergency trips during bad weather. Eventually, they sold the property after 7 years. Between ownership costs, financing expenses, repairs, and missed investment growth, their total financial loss exceeded $220,000. And there's another hidden complication many people never hear about. If you personally use the property for more than 14 days yearly, tax rules may classify it as a personal residence, limiting your ability to deduct rental losses. The peaceful dream property quietly transforms into an exhausting second responsibility. Purchase number 4 is expensive home remodeling projects with weak financial return. This one feels especially responsible because homeowners naturally think they are improving their primary asset. But major renovations often return only 50 to 60 cents for every dollar spent when homes are eventually sold. Remodeling Magazine tracks this data carefully every year. In your 40s, a major kitchen renovation may make perfect sense because you'll enjoy the improvement for decades. In your late 60s or 70s, however, large cosmetic renovations become much riskier financially. Consider James, a retired contractor. He spent $130,000 remodeling his kitchen and primary bathroom beautifully. But only 18 months later, health changes forced his family to move into a single-story living arrangement. The renovations increased the home's value by only $78,000. That means he effectively spent over $50,000 for less than 2 years of enjoyment. Unless renovations genuinely support aging safely at home, things like walk-in showers, grab bars, or accessible first-floor living, purely aesthetic upgrades often become enormous financial drains during retirement. Section 4, the adult child rescue trap. This category is emotionally different because it comes entirely from love. Many retirees quietly support adult children financially through cash gifts, loan assistance, mortgage help, or ongoing emergencies. Pew Research found that parents over age 50 transfer more money annually to adult children than they contribute toward their own retirement accounts. And for many families, the numbers are much higher. But here's the painful reality. More than half of parents providing ongoing financial assistance admit it has weakened their own financial security directly. This creates a heartbreaking long-term problem. If retirees deplete their savings helping adult children today and later reach their late 70s unable to afford health care or assisted living, the burden frequently returns to the same children they tried to protect. In many cases, sacrificing your financial stability now ultimately creates greater financial pressure for your family later. Whether it involves co-signing loans, providing repeated cash support, or draining savings for down payments, the situation often escalates gradually over time. Honest boundaries become essential. It is completely reasonable to say, "I love you deeply and I want to help where I can, but I also need to preserve my own financial security so I never become a burden to you later in life." Finally, Section 5, Practical Frameworks for Preserving True Freedom. So after hearing all this, how do retirees protect themselves from emotionally driven spending mistakes without depriving themselves of joy entirely? The answer is not endless fear or refusing every enjoyable experience. The answer is using disciplined decision frameworks consistently. One of the most effective tools financial planners recommend for any purchase above $10,000 is the 90-day rule. Here's how it works. Write down the complete purchase price, then write down the estimated yearly ownership costs honestly. After that, write down the emotional reason you want the item. Fold the paper, place it in an envelope, and put it away for 90 full days. Do not revisit the decision during that time. After 3 months, reopen the envelope. If the desire remains strong and the financial math still works comfortably, move forward confidently. But surprisingly often, the emotional urgency fades significantly once time removes the excitement. Many expensive purchases are driven more by temporary emotion or boredom than genuine long-term value. Alongside the 90-day rule, every large retirement purchase should pass through a 7-question filter. First, have I waited at least 90 days? Second, what is the real yearly ownership cost, including depreciation? Third, will I realistically be able to maintain this property, vehicle, or asset physically at age 75 or older? Fourth, does this purchase genuinely increase freedom or quietly create new obligations? Fifth, if my health changed suddenly tomorrow, could I exit this investment quickly without catastrophic financial loss? Sixth, am I purchasing this item for its practical value or simply for what it symbolizes emotionally? And seventh, has an independent advisor with no commission incentive reviewed the numbers honestly? True retirement wealth is not about collecting complicated possessions. Real retirement wealth is flexibility. It is the ability to adapt, relocate, change plans, and maintain control over your life as circumstances evolve. As we close today's explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. Research consistently shows that retirees reporting the highest levels of life satisfaction are usually not the ones managing huge collections of expensive recreational assets or multiple complicated properties. Instead, they are often the people who intentionally simplify. They rent the vacation property for a few peaceful weeks and return the keys afterward. They rent the RV for occasional adventures without worrying about storage or maintenance. They keep their assets liquid, flexible, and growing steadily. Remember this clearly. Retirement is not the chapter where you must prove your success to anyone anymore. You already proved that through decades of hard work, discipline, and sacrifice. This stage of life is about peace. It is about enjoying enough and recognizing that enough truly is enough. Financial security is the invisible structure supporting your freedom every single day. So before signing any major purchase agreement in retirement, stop for one moment and ask yourself one simple question. Is this purchase giving me possessions or is it giving me peace? Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Use these frameworks wisely, apply them carefully to your own life, and protect the retirement future you worked so hard to build.